So all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Neil Young just couldn't take it anymore. He was completely distraught about Joe Rogan's podcast because I'm pretty sure Neil Young is the target demographic of Joe Rogan's podcast. And he threatened to pull his music off of Spotify. Now, a lot of people found this very peculiar and very weird that there is so much compassion for the truth when it comes with Neil Young. And they did a little digging and they found out, there is a connection between him and Pfizer. Isn't that interesting? Now, usually people in the West call this a conspiracy theory. Here in Eastern Europe, we call it a conflict of interest. I don't know which word we should use, but whatever. Let's assume that this is legitimately because Neil Young just couldn't take the misinformation. He just had enough. Is the type of person that likes to put morals in front of wealth. And then you have Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, very representative individuals of the average Joe and the common man, who are also very concerned. So now everyone is attacking Spotify for allowing Joe Rogan to spread misinformation. Now, in order for you to believe this, you gotta believe that 2 years into the pandemic, where all the mainstream media was providing information, when all the doctors and the experts and everyone was providing information, and an army of politicians and probably trillions of dollars put in a PR campaign to inform the public, there is the man Joe Rogan. This one man, this one guy with one podcast is able to push back against all the information. So you have an individual somewhere which, after being informed by literally every information source out there, 2 years in the pandemic, is still on the fence. He still doesn't know, should I get vaccinated or not? And because of Joe Rogan, he's like, you know what? I'm not going to do it. And then he gets sick and he dies. So these are the individuals that I guess are being protected by all these singers and Meghan Markle and all of these people, right? Can you name one of these people? Like, can you name a single person that ended up in a coffin because of Joe Rogan? Probably not, because it's not about protecting people. It's 100% about ideology. This has have nothing to do even with the pandemic. Okay, let's be honest for a second. This has everything to do with the fact that Joe Rogan is popular, and these are the competitors who don't like that Joe Rogan can talk about things that they don't like. I mean, all these people invested money into CNN and into MSNBC and all of these other news outlets, and Joe Rogan is someone they can't control. He's very popular, so he needs to be taken down. So they're waiting for an excuse, literally anything. Like, whatever. It needs to be an excuse. And the moment they have an excuse, they go after him and they pretend they're upset over the thing. Like, oh my God, yes, Joe Rogan is going to end up putting people underground. Like, let's be honest. They can't name a single person like that because it doesn't exist. Okay? Joe Rogan, the great misinformer, blah, blah, blah. And then you look at Joe Rogan himself. He's not an extremist. He's an average Joe just asking questions. Like, it's not even him misinforming. Like, he is a talk show host and he is inviting people that are controversial to allow themselves to explain their position. And from what I know, like, all he invited are world-renowned doctors, people with that are experts, and they publish things in the field. I mean, it's not like he's inviting people off the street in order to provide misinformation, now is it? And from what I see, it's not like they're trying to debunk the people he's inviting. No, they're trying to shut down the Joe Rogan podcast. As if it would work. Because, when you shut down someone that's small, okay, fine. But when you shut down the world's biggest podcast, when you shut down Joe Rogan, you do realize that his followers will go after. Because Joe Rogan is a product. And people want to buy that product. You're not creating so that people don't want to buy the product. You're just telling people they're not allowed to buy it, that the product should be illegal. That's what you're saying. Or you're making the product esoteric. Like, you're making even more people curious. Because I wasn't listening to Joe Rogan. But now I had to see those two very controversial things that he had because I was curious. It's like, oh my God, it's esoteric knowledge. It's like reading the Necronomicon or something. So yeah, it is what it is. But I do expect the attacks to keep going because, again, Spotify is a competitor to a lot of big platforms and the media, and they don't appreciate the fact that there is someone else that's trying to have a different take, a different opinion. There are no more two sides of the same story anymore. There is the correct version of truth and misinformation. And Joe Rogan made a video pointing out how things that were misinformation 8 months ago are now information. You literally have things going from conspiracy theory to misinformation to lacking context to now being truth. Like, for example, the lab leak theory. You know, like 8 months ago it was a conspiracy theory, then it was lacking context, and now you have it on mainstream media outlets talking about it. So I guess like the difference between conspiracy theory and misinformation and the truth is due or take 6 months. But, you know, whatever. I'm really glad Meghan Markle and Prince Harry are the gatekeepers of truth, and they're really careful about me only being subjected to the truth. I hope that when I'm going to buy a house, Meghan Markle and Prince Harry can be there in order to make sure that the house salesman isn't going to misinform me and give me a house at a worse price. Because I might end up on the streets and I might end up dead. So hopefully Meghan Markle is going to be there and show the same amount of compassion and caring like she did when it was me watching the Joe Rogan podcast. Meanwhile, Spotify apparently lost a lot in stocks. Yeah, imagine what would have happened if they would have kicked off Joe Rogan. A lot of people just look at the numbers and they look at all these singers being popular. All these singers that are complaining, they have a very old audience. I mean, people in their 70s and their 80s. Joe Rogan not only has more people than them, but they're young. Which one do you think is more good for business to have? To have a young subscriber base or to have an old subscriber base? Which one do you think is better, business-wise? Secondly, if Joe Rogan gets kicked off of Spotify, I think that would actually be for his liking, because then he can sue Spotify because they have a contract. So not only can he make money from Spotify, but he will probably go on another platform. He can go on Rumble, he can go on all these alt platforms and bring more people there. So you're not really doing anything. You know, again, it's not like you're going after a medium-sized or a small independent creator. You're going after Joe Rogan, world biggest podcaster. Maybe you should ask CNN, why don't they have people like Joe Rogan hired? Huh? Why can't they bring the numbers? Why instead of trying to get CNN to improve so that they can have a bigger audience, you're just trying to shut down the competition. That tells me a lot about CNN, by the way. But anyway, right, so Spotify is trying now to please both parties by adding addition content warning. Yes, as if I didn't know that Joe Rogan doesn't speak the gospel. As if I didn't know that Joe Rogan doesn't speak and hold the ultimate truth. I need a content warning. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I now know that the mathematical truth cannot be found under the Joe Rogan's podcast. To be honest, I hope it's just going to be content warnings, because if you look at internet history, you know that it starts with content warnings and then it goes with suppression and outright censorship, and that's pretty much how the platform goes towards. But let's be honest, like no one thought Spotify is going to be a bastion of free speech, now did we? So the only thing that I hope, as I mentioned before, I don't hope for a free speech platform. I think that is never going to happen. What I do hope is for the rules to be consistent. I want the same standard across the board. So I want that the rules should be clear. Like you should know exactly what is misinformation. And I want to see when the left pushes misinformation, when progressives push for misinformation, I want to see the same content label on them. It should be applied across the board. Everyone should be under the rules. You shouldn't make exception for people, because that is the biggest problem with platforms nowadays. The rules are very ambiguous, and secondly, you're not applying them equally to everyone. You have like priority creators and creators who get stopped for a broken taillight, as they say. So it is what it is. You know, by the way, Disturbed, of all people, came in support of Joe Rogan. So the lead singer of Disturbed came out and supports Joe Rogan, and I guess I'll have to buy a new Disturbed album because that's how it works, right? You vote with your wallet. If you like who is doing something, you need to support them. If you don't like what someone is doing, you need to stop buying it. So kudos to Disturbed. I guess we're going to have 10,000 fists in the air. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you in the comment section. Take care.